Welcome to the High Note, an interview with Geno. Okay, what does O stand for?
Orphanopoulos, my last name.
O's good. O period.
It doesn't fit on a
Geno.
marquee. It doesn't fit on marquee, Chris. So
Yeah, like all those forms with the little boxes where you got to fill in they only give you so many characters. I totally get that. That's awesome. So Geno, you are a singer, songwriter. You a maker of fabulous landscapes over here. What now? You have a background in where's that?
Monterey, California. This is the view from my balcony.
Yes. So you're a musician, songwriter, singer with a background in Monterey. That's
With a
awesome.
background in Monterey. Well, yeah, technically, yes. You're right.
All right.
So,
Well, thank you all for joining us in this conversation. We're going to dig into your history, your story. I'm sure you have plenty of things that you've done over the years in the business. I want to put out a special thanks to Piebox and Slack for sponsoring our programs and our shows. Thank you for allowing us to use your tools to learn and collaborate and educate and have a great time interacting with other folks of like minds. So speaking of which, like minds, now you and I have had a similar story or path, I should say, a journey, in that we had this music career that happened for a while, and we did our the good, the bad, and the ugly. We had some successes, and I'm sure we had some failures and lessons learned, and then we took a break. And mine was about 19 years thereabouts, and I don't know how long yours was, which I want to find that out. And then now we're back in the music business, and we're doing different things, and we're approaching it differently. So I'd like to first hear about, tell me about this first bubble of stuff what got you excited about music and got you into it, and then how did that journey lead you to the point where you said, "Hey, I need to do something else for a little while."
so thank you, Chris. First of all, for having me. And yeah, we did have a similar journey. I think people should know you and I met at a convention for taxi for sync licensing. We'll get to that in a minute. But I started my first band when I was 15 in a garage. Strapped on I learned. I took with a Spanish guitar, nylon string. My mom wanted me to play flamenco. I'm like, I don't think so. I like rock and roll. So started my first band at 15, had another one at 17, another one at 19, another one at 21. And by that time, I had, played all the high schools and frat parties and pool parties. And we were ready to do nightclubs. And I was old enough to get in. So I really was the promoter of the band as well, being the lead singer. And we played all the clubs, the headlining clubs here in the Bay Area.
So now
And
you're from this area, and
I'm from the
kind of
San
been here.
Francisco Bay Area. Yeah, I'm born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Mm. Came up with a lot of, musicians that are still doing it today. I had some successes, like you said. We like that fourth band. We opened for Huey Lewis and the News at a big outdoor stadium. Got a standing ovation. We're like, we're not even signed to a label. Thank you, But because everybody has a learning lesson in that industry, in that band, we got let's just say we learned a lesson dealing with some professionals that we thought were going to lift our career up. And instead, a lot of money was spent and went bye-bye. But
That happens to a lot of people from that in that time period. It's a little
yeah,
different now. It's harder to scam, but they're different scams, I guess. But that was the big thing back then. Hey, I'm gonna make you a star.
oh
Give me
yeah, you got
money.
a record deal, and you're 20-ish, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Not knowing really a record deal is like a permanent loan. And you're beholden to that entity,
It's
whatever it may
a new
be.
form of slavery, essentially. For a lot of people, it really was.
That's what Prince wrote on his forehead, I think,
Yeah,
at a couple
exactly.
of concerts, right?
Hmm.
Because he recorded all his stuff at home, but to get it published back then, he needed a record label, right?
Hmm.
And they took everything. So, the wonderful thing today, we don't need record labels. We can do it ourselves, but there's a business side to it, and you have to split that brain, man. You got your creative side and the business side, and you got to do both. We'll get to that in a minute. I had a fifth band called The Make out of San Francisco. There's another band called The Make, but this was out of San Francisco. These guys were all original, and I joined them after I left my last band, the one that we almost had a record deal with. Um, and we recorded two EPs, um, about 12 songs, I believe, 15 songs. And then we were recording more, but the band broke up before we could release them. After that, I was like, okay, I'm 30. I want to have kids. I want to be married. And I just kind of said, that's it. I'm done with bands, right? I'd been doing it for 15 years at that point. And I got married, had a starter wife, and then I got married again. And then I had two great kids, and I was a devoted dad. And I literally had my guitars up on the wall, hanging on clips, ready to take down, but I just kind of wasn't feeling it anymore. And it was weird. It's like going through a, a grieving process of, is it still in me or not? Um, but I kept on getting pulled in. People would say, come over and sing or come over and play guitar. Yeah, okay. And I'd write a song or two with a couple of buddies. And then it was my 50th birthday. And I decided to go to something called the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. I don't know if
No,
anyone's heard of that, but
yeah, tell us what that is.
um, so this gentleman, David Fishoff, he runs the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. He's the creator of it. He used to be a sports manager, and people would do baseball camps. They go play baseball with their heroes, and he decided to make it rock and roll heroes.
Oh, fun.
So I signed up, and the experience was amazing because you're spending a week with the people you looked up to growing up. You know, I'm friends now with Mark Farner from Grand Funk Railroad, um, Howard Leese from Heart and Bad Company. Uh, I jammed with Michael Anthony of Van Halen. We did You Really Got Me. I got to sing with him and hear those beautiful harmonies he does, right? Um, I jammed with Ronnie Montrose. We did Rock Candy together. I
Wow.
mean, his music was what I grew up listening to. Like, I want to be that. And here I was
Unique
playing
idea.
with
I
him.
really think that's awesome. And what a way to inspire people. Did it pull you
Exactly.
back in? It pulled you back in, didn't it?
It
Gotcha.
totally did, dude. It was like, I'm in. All right. Look, here's the thing. Um, I didn't mention this. I did take a break because I actually developed thyroid cancer when I was 30,
Wow.
just when I was just getting married. And that kind of messed with my voice. I
Hmm.
couldn't sing like I could before.
I know
So,
it's probably a little tougher.
yes, 2.5 step down. Musicians know this, right? So that break was partly to do with that. But when I had a chance to perform with these icons, I call them,
Hmm.
they're like encouraging me, like, dude, you can do this. You should get back into it. I'm like, really? Thank you. I will listen to the Messiah, follow your lead. And So what I did, Chris, was I reached into my archive of songs that never got released, and I had recorded them on my home Tascam 688 8-track cassette home studio that I
Oh,
had back
that's
then.
the 8-track. Yeah, I had the
8-track.
same one.
Yeah,
That's a great tool,
it's
man.
rare.
Yeah.
It's
I sold
great.
mine at a garage sale like for 25 bucks. It was stupid, but
I
anyways.
paid full price for mine, man. But the Rembrandts wrote their whole album on two of those. They cooked them together and did
Yep,
16 track on those.
that's pretty cool.
So I still had the master cassettes and I had them digitized because we can do that today. And in 2016 and 17, I remastered what I could of those recordings and I did 3 new ones. And I put out my first solo album in 2017.
Awesome.
And I thank you. I called it Genealogy. It's my ology with my first name.
Cool, cool. I
Boom,
got
boom.
my drum set right here. I'm gonna I'll get
Yeah,
that in there, everyone. The
just like Michael does on his taxi TV shows.
yeah,
Audience laughing and
you got a
whatnot.
little button though.
Yeah. Well, so that's what happened and got me back in.
That's all.
And tell me more what you want to know.
Well, no, it's just so many fun parallels. I got sucked back in because I had built a studio as part of what we were doing with our business innovation center, and then I started mentoring kids, and then they pulled me in. Went and taught, and then I'm like realized how much I didn't know. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that you saw, wow, the music business has changed so much,
Oh
and
yeah.
um, but that's ironic. I still probably have a couple 8-track cassettes. I might come and ask you for a mix down to use your system when I come out to LA again. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I guess what do you think has changed the most in the music business since you kind of took a break from it?
Everything.
Yeah.
The entire landscape has changed. Um, well, okay, from a 30,000 foot level,
Mhm.
we as independent musicians writing in our home studios now, we have the ability to do that.
Yes, that's
And not on cassette, on the DAW, digital audio workstation, on our laptops, right here in our living rooms. Okay. And beautiful microphones and things and plugins to make everything sound awesome. I feel bad for my friends who own recording studios who aren't getting any more clients. They're suffering, but you got to go with the changes, right? So
so much
that's a
less
huge thing.
so much less noise. I mean,
Yeah.
you just always have the 30-second hum or 60 cycle hum and all these others. And I have to run these wires around and attach everything for a ground and all this other stuff. Because when I was using analog instruments, now it's all in the box. It's like, there's no noise.
Yes.
It's just beautiful.
Well, and it doesn't cost per hour,
And
which
it's,
was that was a huge detriment for a lot of creatives. The cost of recording was prohibitive. And you had to rush through because musicians generally don't have a lot of money unless they have sponsors, right? So that's changed. But the business side, what we're looking at now is an independent artist has the exact same opportunities as a major label artist as far as distributing your music and having people listen to it. But you need to know how to get people to listen to it and where to get that exposure.
it's
And
different. It's different.
you are the
You're not
record
going to play a
company.
live gig and somebody's going to come up in here and you go, hey, I want to work with you. It
I
doesn't
wouldn't say
happen.
that. Yeah, I wouldn't say that doesn't happen at all anymore, but chances are there aren't A&R reps out
Yeah, but
there.
you better be warming up for Huey News, Huey Lewis in the news
Yeah,
if you're gonna, do that.
right,
That's
right.
where it'll happen. It won't happen in a little bar gig somewhere, usually.
Maybe I'll walk into a bar and walk up to somebody, pretty good man, I'll help you. but I haven't done that. The thing is, we have more flexibility now to control our own destiny. The thing is, most musicians that I know are creatives. They only want to make music. They don't want to deal with the business side.
Well,
In
that
my day,
that's where, coming back as a more mature adult, I would say,
Mhm.
not only does that maturity come through in your music, but also in your business common sense, because you've had to raise a family and deal with responsibilities for a period of time now. You're not just kind of living from gig to gig, and you built your life, and you go, whoa, this is the way that works, and you have that, you bring that forward into what you're doing. So you have a
Precisely.
business sense.
I was fortunate enough to be a very successful sales and marketing executive in a number of different companies. So sales, you got to sell yourself when you're promoting yourself. You got to know how to do it right. And there's just so many things to learn. Now, Chris, I didn't have all the answers. In the last 4 years, I've taken a bunch of master classes online so that I can learn the new business,
Yep.
how to market, what to do. I've invested thousands of dollars doing that, but that's given me the tools and the knowledge of how to explore and, create things in this new business, music business that we're in.
Well,
It's so different.
one of the things that I've invested in quite a few different programs as well, online programs. That's actually how this whole community started. Is a bunch of us that were working together in one of these classes with cinematic composing. We just, they changed their model, and something changed, so we just wanted to keep going. So that's how this all ended up. The thing that I think for our listeners there think about with this is that when you're 19, thinking about spending $2,500 on or 5,000, whatever, to go and invest in yourself, in your education, so that you can be better prepared. You don't see the value at that, because it's kind of this one of my favorite sayings. I went with my friend to get his marriage license, which was, I guess, his test wife as well. I liked your term with that.
Starter.
Starter wife. That's a good that's a good term. And it had this thing on the wall, is right where we were getting the license, and it said, "Why didn't life's problems hit me when I was a teenager, when I knew it all?" And we one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life is to never, ever let your ego get in the way of a good business decision. And that was the problem that I know I had. And I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's into, inherited from that age, right? That 18 to 22, probably, where you start waking up a little bit. You're like, hey, especially if you have got some talent, a little bit of talent, and you're a little bit aggressive, and you're like, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to conquer the world, be the best at this, or whatever it is. You kind of have these blinders on, which in some ways is good, because that keeps you charging forward, and it doesn't let the naysayers pull you down. But at the same time, I think I'm getting the nod that you kind of agree with me with that one.
Oh, you're speaking my language, brother. The funny thing is too, it's like I look at that age, 19 to 22. That was a big decision-making time for me. I was a kid, man. In my mind, I thought I was this mature adult, right? And making big decisions, but wow, that was a lot to take on at that age, and to decide that was going to be my career, right? Uh, Lofty goals.
or
Uh,
or or maybe it is like you thinking, well, this is what I do and what I'm going to do, and you're not seeing beyond it, that there are other things. And
that's it.
for,
Yeah,
for me, that's what I found is, like, I I was so in this bubble, and I don't know if you were, but I didn't really know who I was. I know who this Chris as the, as his talent was, Geno as his talent was, but did you really know Geno? That did you find that discovery once you let go of the music and you stepped away from it? You realize, hey, I'm this whole other person, and this whole other, there's more to me. And then now to bring that back into what you're doing now.
You're giving me goosebumps, man. That's exactly what happened. I mean, that comes with maturity and life lessons, you know. But yeah, I think that you're spot on in that. It takes time to know yourself. You're still a kid at, even 25. You're still a kid. The fact is, our brains don't even develop. Male brains don't even develop fully until you're 25. It's a scientific fact. So, to make
You
those
didn't know
big
that at 22. You didn't know
no,
that.
I thought I knew everything. Come on, just like you probably and everybody else listening. Well, after that album came out, I had another little health crisis. I won't go into it, but I then had to stop working, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And this thing came into my purview of something called sync licensing. And I had heard about it. I knew some friends who wrote jingles, which back in the day, if you wrote jingles, you were selling out.
Yeah, it's a different attitude. I agree.
And those guys got bank now, you know. But they're doing pretty well, I'm sure, off of those jingles that probably still play today. But I I then kind of learned a little more about it, started taking that master class that I spoke about. And that's when I joined Taxi, which is an A&R company that screens songs for their clients who are music supervisors, labels, artists, right?
Concierge service essentially for
Yeah,
your songs. If it's good,
yes.
it's going to get passed along. If it's not, well, hey, you should go back and fix this. Which is, I learned a lot that my first year in Taxi. I learned so much because you get into like, well, I'm good, but no, you've got some skills, but you're not like what they need. And being good, at you can write some good music, you can produce some good stuff, it sounds great, but meeting a mark, having that target and be able to hit that target, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, when you're talking about hit the mark or that target, as a creative artist, we have the side of us that wants to produce a song that we feel good about, that we want to give to the masses, right? We want to share with everybody. Sync licensing isn't that. You have to pull your brain back in and listen to what the brief, that's what they call it, a brief.
Yeah.
This is what they're looking for. Male vocal, this tempo for this type of scene. And here are some sound alike songs. You got to be there for what's right for that particular scene or that particular movie, end credit, whatever. You got to put your ego aside. It's not for the masses. It's for that little window of what they're looking for. So my first year in Taxi, I'm like, okay, I'll spend a few $100 and be a member. I did not expect anything. Chris, I don't know if I told you what happened. I think it was like the second week I joined, I realized they had a TV show on Monday on YouTube.
Oh yeah, you started watching it.
Yeah,
You
I
got
had never watched.
educated quickly, didn't you?
I
You
never
did a
watched
great
it. I
job.
never watched it, but they sent out an email like 2 days before and said, "Oh, we have a CEO of a music library that wants to screen songs. Send your song in." I'm like, okay, I'll send them one of the songs from that debut album I did a couple of years before, right? And there's probably thousands of Taxi members, which there are. And I'm like, they're not gonna, I'll just watch. Halfway through, he
It's
picked my
like,
song.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
And he critiqued it. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I passed the bar the first time. I actually sent it in and to that music
That
library.
that was kind of a luck of the draw, though, right? Because there were quite a
I
few, and it's like they pull it randomly, and you got picked.
I think they screened some. I don't know if it was just random. I think they screened them.
Mm.
I don't know.
Because you
I
usually
never
those
asked
aren't.
Michael.
But yeah, okay. But anyways, you got it played and critiqued.
Well, I not only that, I got to publish. That was my first music library publishing deal.
Cool. He
He
liked it.
actually
He said, "I want it."
he liked it. Yeah,
Beautiful. That's awesome.
that was my confirmation that okay, what I'm writing can be used for film and
Cool.
TV, right? It
Yep.
can be, possibly. It's not a deal. It's in a library with thousands of other artists, but it could get picked.
Well, yeah, it's being
Subsequently,
shopped. It's being
yeah,
actively shopped. Yeah.
yeah, they got to shop it. Um, Subsequently, within that same first 9 months, I actually got two more music library publishing deals for two
Wow.
other songs through Taxi.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
like, yes, this is working. Um, a year, those deals were for 3 years. A year later, I got my first sync on
Played.
a TV show.
Oh,
Yeah, a place
wonderful. That's fantastic.
I'd never heard of the show. It was on the Motor Trend channel, a series called Car Fix. A couple of dudes are wrenching on muscle cars, and they're
Yeah.
using rock and roll music in between the scene changes.
Oh, was that a vocal or an instrumental?
Well, I sent in, they had the full vocal at the library that pitched it, but they
Oh,
also asked me for the
yeah.
instrumental, and the editor edited the instrumental. So what they played was 32 seconds of the bridge and the chorus blended together. It sounded cool. It looked cool on the scene. And
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
cool.
yes. But here's the funny thing, Chris. I wasn't told it got placed.
You saw your royalty check, right?
I got my BMI check,
And
a
you're going, what
statement
the hell is
rather.
this for?
Yeah, look, I won't even mention the amount because it was laughable. Okay. Totally laughable. Look, let's put less than $100, okay? But
But it felt good. No, I got
great.
my
It was
first
like,
royalty check
yes,
from
I want more.
from an album, and I got was $10, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa! At
But
least it went.
it's in your resume now, right?
Exactly.
So that kind of then confirmed A, I'm on the right path. B, my music could get placed. And if I can do it, other people can do it.
You got
They
the
just need to know.
you got the confidence back, and then now from there you're motivated, and you're like, I'm charging forward. I'm going to do this, and then so from there, what did you do that? What are you doing now that's building on that momentum?
Thank you
Do
for asking.
you
So
have a,
yeah,
you have a strategy, a 5-year plan, those kinds of things?
well, it kind of goes full circle, actually. It's funny you say this. I'm just realizing this now. I hadn't been playing, I hadn't been performing. I was just pulling out an old catalog and going in the studio and recording to put out that album. Now I had a body of work. I had more songs to be recorded and performed. So I set myself up. I got myself well rehearsed and I started performing live, but as a solo acoustic. I'd bring friends in and we do duets or trios and all acoustic. I plug in my Les Paul every once in a while too. I even had backing tracks, which to the chagrin of some of my purist friends, oh no, you got to be, don't use backing tracks. I'm like, the audience wants it
they
and they
they
like
work.
it. So
They
yeah,
work. I have
work
this
fine.
I have this friend Casio. He's from Portugal, and he's internationally famous. But he goes around, and the thing is, he really cares about his audience. and he connects with all these little old ladies in the Portuguese community and everything like that. And he's got this awesome pop. I mean, his producers are great. I've talked to him online. I haven't met him personally, but it's like he goes around and it's a track show. Sometimes it's a track show with dancers. Sometimes, he'll do some live gigs with a band and that sort of thing. But he can play any venue because he's got that, any venue.
Exactly.
And there's different price ranges. So he can afford and still do well just playing a little bitty restaurant someplace that they can afford to pay, 500, 1,000, 1,500 bucks or something like that as he's going along in between the bigger shows. So if you're doing that, let them chagriners go. Let them chagrin all they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about enjoying what you're doing. And if you can provide entertainment to an audience who appreciates it and likes what you're doing, and you don't have to, worry about, if somebody's going to show up to the gig or if they're going to be drunk or whatever, you're on your own. Well, the other thing I did besides getting out and playing live again, I was recording another single with our producer from the last band I was in, The Mate.
Wow.
And we were recording my song, Crazy World. It's kind of a Caribbean vibe, way off the mark of whatever I've done before. Horns, and my producer and I were working together for the first time in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd just gotten that sync placement. And I looked at him, I said, do you have those original 2-inch reel-to-reel masters of the make? Because I think we could get those songs placed on TV and film.
There's a huge call for that right now.
It was late 80s rock.
They want it. They need it.
We were good. I'm not boasting. I was told we were good. Mm-hmm. And we did. We digitized all of our masters. He was the producer. He remixed them. And we put out, we titled the album Up Sessions, The Make Up Sessions. And we put out 15 songs. And we're getting airplay in Germany, all over the world.
That's fantastic.
I'm like, that's crazy, right? Then my producer went even further, did a class called The Art of the Song Pitch. And now he's pitching not only the make music, his music, my music, other artists he's recorded. He's pitching them directly to music supervisors, not going through the middleman. And they're loving this stuff. I'll soon have an announcement. Can't say anything yet, but I have an announcement of something we know it's coming down the pike for the make in a major motion picture.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, it's like a lot of these kinds of things. It's like they turn on the radio and it's not going to be, if depending on the scene, it's going to be something from the past. They need that because it has to exist, and it can't be a pop song that's already happened, that
right.
was a top 40 or something like that. It's got to be something that sounds like it's from that era.
Actually, it has to be from that era.
They literally, it has to be from that era because
yes.
You can't really emulate some of those recording techniques, and
they don't want that
available.
Yes, they don't even want that. They want authentically recorded. Now, we remastered it, but originally recorded. It's my voice when I was 25, 27 years old.
But it's all different.
Like that?
Well, it's like, I remember in the recording studio, we would do these things where we'd create a tape loop, right? And we'd have a piece of tape, we'd splice it. It'd run around a mic stand, going around over the thing. We'd have these big long loops of different things going all over that is unheard. That doesn't happen anymore, right? They actually
don't appreciate that.
They don't. The thing is, I went and did a tour of Berklee School of Music, and they've got these amazing recording studios. Like, I think there's like 25 of them or something like that. And they've got cabinets full of these, $20,000 Neumann microphones, and they got like 50 of them it's like crazy in each one of the studios. It's a amazing facility, killer program to go participate in. Well, they actually have one studio that is kind of like their retro studio, and they teach that whole thing where it's kind of like,
Oh,
okay, you go, it's like in music theory. They had one of my music theory classes in 1980. They had me learn about semi-brevs and neumes, which is what the Gregorian or the monks Gregorian chants used to write things down. It's so like, okay, I'll learn a little bit about your music history, learn a little bit about your recording history, but those techniques made it sound the way that it does.
absolutely right. And you know what? Funny thing you say that. As I mentioned, I was working with my producer from the Make, and we were doing a new recording of my two singles, right? At that time, this was 2019 to 20. He has now brought back the analog recording equipment. So now he's having people actually record analog to get that full sound, but
Different
then
sound.
mixing it in digital.
Well, yeah, that's where everything, that's how you're translating it.
Yes.
But yeah.
So, we're a bunch of, older rockers from the, from a bygone era, but keeping up with the new music business, it's tough out there. It's tough for any new band to get exposure and to do all that. Making money has always been a challenge. That's nothing new, you know. Live gigs, merchandise. It's tough to sell CDs anymore. Actually, what I do when I play, I have I have a tip jar and all my CDs there, and I'll say, for a $10 tip, you get a free CD.
Yeah.
It works.
And that's
There's a little
actually
tip
a
for
good.
you guys. It works psychologically. It works, but streaming doesn't pay anything really. Fraction of a penny,
I
point
hope
zero
that
zero
changes
three.
with the new laws. They're starting to I mean, streaming companies don't like it. But
Well, they're making billions, but artists are suffering. That's why you see a lot of these older artists coming out and playing now because they're not selling albums or units. They got to pay the mortgage, and they're coming out and playing at 70, 80 years old, you know?
well, I still think that Mick Jagger and the gang, they have some royalties still.
Yes.
I don't think they
Yes.
need to do it, but it's a kind of a cool little extra deal. Playing to how many hundreds of thousands of people on the beach in Rio. That might be kind of,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we have the ability now to distribute our music easily through TuneCore, uh, uh, DistroKid, whatever you want to do, and put it on all the streaming platforms, YouTube and everything else. Um, I've had my music out there quite a bit. Royalty checks, not so much. Uh, Even if they're played, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times, it doesn't. When I found out about sync licensing, that's when I went, here's what I can do. And that you can do that into your old age. And it also leaves a little bit more of a legacy for you, because that's also something that will be seen by, you know, millions of people. And you can say, hey, that's my work there, right?
yeah, absolutely. Well, the what, especially with some of the things that the digital workstations can do. I'm a wannabe jazz pianist, and I have a little bit of skill and I can play stuff and go sit out, but quite often some of the parts that you have to play are like, okay, and it's kind of nice to be able to, like, let me slow that down and then speed it up to where it's supposed to be. Or I got to fix that
Absolutely.
little part, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, I used to be a really good drummer, nice and solid, but now I'll lay down a part and it's like I can just click that quantize button and I'm perfect again. you know, I mean, that isn't always the case because you have to get the feel and all that sort of thing. But the point
But
is,
again, I mean, we
tools,
couldn't do that. We couldn't do
yeah,
that before.
exactly. They help you sound better. You know, and one of the points I wanted to, you had mentioned that you kind of went back and you put this album out in 2017, and it was like all the stuff that you hadn't really finished yet, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the story, and this is kind of this other parallel, is that I said, I want to get back into music again. But before I do, I've got to finish all these things that I didn't get to do. I was too broke to finish before because I mean, I had in this new place that I had a nice recording studio. Why not?
Right.
So
Right.
anyways, and I found a couple people to come in and collaborate a little bit to help finish some of the pieces. And then COVID hit and I had to finish a couple of them on my own. But the point is that it's like, man, I got it off my chest. I don't have to think about it anymore. I did it. And that it's that sound, it's that music that I wrote like 40 years ago. And then now, I mean, the stuff that, I find for myself that I'm writing is I'm writing trailer music. I'm writing classical, mood pieces and emotional stuff because I'm really going after that cinematic thing. But, the point is that because I let go of that, that chapter's done. Now I can move forward with the next batch of music. So for you, it seems like you're kind of feeling that same thing. What is that next chapter for you? What is the music that you're going to do next? And how is that different from where you've been? Probably you're going to have a little bit of rock influence, in what you do, but what else are you going to do? Where's that direction?
Um, Good question. I I tend to come up with ideas, in inconvenient places. So I have about 70 ideas on my voice recorder. I'll tap a beat or snap my finger or sing a melody or just put my phone down and strum. I got like a lot of half-baked ideas. So my goal in the next couple of years is to turn 70 songs into a good 15 or 20 and put out another album. Um, I had another vocal challenge. I actually got cancer on my vocal cord last year. I still have a little bit of a roughness to my voice,
Which
but
people like, by the way. They do. They dig that quality.
chicks dig it. That's what I've been told.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know, whatever.
A woman
But
with a low voice kind of go, whoa, man,
baby,
help me
well,
out.
we'll see. I now have to tune down a full step, not a half step. But I'm doing the best I can, and that's what I want to do is collaborate, finish music. And if somebody else wants to license it or use it, I'd love to have a major recording artist record my song. I'll just sit back and collect the royalties, you know? I don't have to be out there performing anymore.
Well,
I do it because I love it.
well, yeah, that and you got to do what you love and what feels good. I mean that's this whole thing. I mean, that's the other thing about coming in at our age, and I'm just going to say, we're a little older, and in that we can not that we can kind of say we don't give a shit. We can kind of just say, no, say, I want to do what feels right. I'm doing this for me first.
Yes.
I think that's important because if you're really doing it for you, then it's going to really have that artistic flavor to it. Even if your focus is to target a particular niche. And I think that's important for people to think about as far as a strategy goes, because you you just mentioned like three different directions that you can go. Yeah, okay, I've got my live. I'm going to try some new stuff with my and have my tracks, and I'm going to do that because I like it. But then you also have like, okay, well, if I'm going to write songs for artists, maybe you're going to target artists that you're going to go after. Maybe you're going to try and be part of a writing team for that artist or something like that. And that's a whole nother track. Then you have the other, and as musicians, if we want to have income, we have to have multiple channels, right? And then you have the other side thing. Okay, well, let's say I'm going to write some 60s surf music, an album of that for sync, and you do 10, 15 cuts of that, and or other things that you're interested in. um you know what do you see as being your strategy moving forward in those particular genres that you might want to go after, and where do you see the biggest opportunity for you and your style in the coming years?
You hit it on the head when you said I'll have more rock. I am a rocker at heart, but
Wait. What's the name? What's your website again? Okay, it's Geno Rocks. Geno.rocks. Okay,
okay.
that says it all right there, man.
I found out that there's a URL that ends in rocks. I'm like,
Exactly.
no brainer.
Yeah.
Geno rocks, the mate dot rocks. Yeah.
There's your brand right there. You're done. End of story. See you later. Bye, everybody.
Exactly right. But I always think I'll have that kind of rock flavor. Like I mentioned, Crazy World, a single I did a while ago, that has a Caribbean beat with horns. I did a Latin beat one with the next single, Cool. And I want to kind of experiment. I don't want to be just pigeonholed into one sound, you know. The make is 80s rock. That will always be that. But I want to be, as an independent artist, flexible and experimenting with different types of genres, and incorporating a little bit of rock to it, because that's what I love to do.
Okay.
Now, I'm a little envious of you. You're a composer. You play piano really well, and
A little bit.
that's something. Look at that. Look at this workroom
I
you
got
have.
my little bubble. Anyways.
Hey, wait, is Personas mixer
Yeah,
behind you?
well, okay, so I got, well, no, I can't see. Where is it? It's over here. Yeah.
That one right there.
Yeah, you know what I got is, see these knobs right here? They're touch
Yes,
sensitive. All
I
right.
know.
So I can use that as a controller for my mixer.
I literally have that mixer right behind me. You can't see
It's
it.
beautiful. I love it. But
I have it just for that reason, to do fades, and because you can't do it with a mouse.
you know what? I never use it. I'm never mixing like that. You know, I,
Yeah,
I I'm doing one at a time, and I'm just doing it with,
we're
but that's
learning.
what I got it for. It's kind of complicated too. It's not like I get it set up and then I leave it alone, and then if I have to go mess with it, I got to go, what?
This
Okay,
is why I
now
like to
I'm in
go
the
in the
zone. I
studio.
figure it out.
I really like to have help doing that, because I just want to stay creative. The tech stuff is
Well,
a challenge.
well, you know what I find is that I have to discipline myself to a particular workflow of
Yes,
doing different things. Now, as I've got these little drums over here, and I've got some chimes. Like I know I'm doing more where I like record my chimes or these little drums, and maybe the bass. And I suck at guitar, but I can make noise on it. But the point is I start using those more, and then I've got a different workflow than just doing stuff in the box, and that adds to it when you have something that's a new. But my point is that if you do, it seems like the DAW is a little bit more. It's a newer direction for you. I've been kind of
yes.
for a little while, but the point is, if you develop that workflow with each of these pieces, not trying to do all of them at once, if I build that in and I get my mind so it's just part of my workflow, then it won't be uncomfortable. But because I'm not doing it every day, and I'm not putting
Right.
a live instrument on every day or whatever, then I have to stop and think about it. But that
So
I think that that's something for people to think about as they're developing their process. You don't have to. You're not going to know everything that you need to know. Do a little bit and add to it. I have these little cue cards for my little shortcuts, and I memorize
too.
a couple new ones.
For you, man.
Then I forget them. I mean, old. Anyways, I forget them.
You've given me some good ideas, brother. Cue cards. I like it.
Yeah, well, it helps a lot, well, and
Yeah,
um so, like you say, we can do this for a little bit longer. I can do this into my Alzheimer years.
right.
I
Right.
hope. Anyways, cool, man. Well, hey, if you had some advice, so I kind of have two things that I want to touch on. One is, and I don't know if you're paying attention to what's going on with artificial intelligence, um, and some of the things that are going on, but I know it's a pretty, whew, it's a big topic. So without going down a rabbit hole for 3 hours, which I would love to do, what would be what are your thoughts on what's happening with that, and how do you think that's going to evolve the industry in the next, say, 5 years or so?
Well, I'll say this. The SAG-AFTRA Actors Guild was very concerned about their likenesses being used artificially without getting compensated. And that's what that strike was all about, which
Yep.
stopped production of TV and films in the US. Um, they have a very valid reason for that, because we as consumers would not be able to know the difference if somebody's image is talking to us on a screen and it's AI doing it, because it's that powerful that you can't tell the difference. Um, in regards to music, uh, it can be used as a tool. Like, for example, these older recordings, you can put it through an AI program and it can remove the background vocals and keep the lead vocal, like, automatically. That's crazy. We don't have that technology until now. Um, you text what you want this thing to create, and it can come up with a sort of a song. But my feeling is you'll never replace the human emotion. Machines can't be human. They can try to
Emulate
replicate,
and
yeah,
emulate, but yeah, they can't.
emulate, yes, but musicians will never be replaced if we use it as a tool. Which, by the way, I'm not on board with it. That's just me. I don't want to feed the beast, but I know it can be used as a tool. Like I just expressed it, it can remove background voice vocals or give you an instrumental. If you have that I might use, because these old recordings that I had, I didn't have the individual tracks. I could actually remove all the vocal track and have an instrumental for cues for sync licensing. Okay, yeah, I'd probably use it for that. Uh, but to create new music with AI, I want to sit with a human being and collaborate on an actual creation that we made, not something coming out of a box. That's just me.
Yeah, no, and it's a valid position. There's, I have a long list of opinions myself about that, which I won't get into now.
Yes.
But if you were going to give advice to to other younger artists that are kind of coming into this space right now, what would be the key advice or takeaway that you would, you know, want them to have to help them with what they're trying to achieve in their career?
I would say now that I have hindsight, number one, learn the music business. There's actually a book an attorney put out. I'll give that title in a second, or I can give it to you later. You can share with the audience. You have to protect what's called your intellectual property.
Mhm.
Okay, that's your creation. How do you protect it? Everything in writing. If you collaborate with somebody, put together what's called a split sheet.
Mhm.
You split 50-50, one third, depends on what you're doing. Everything in writing. Copyright your music. Don't mail it to yourself. That's 1970s thought process. Go in the copyright, US copyright. If you're in the US, go on the US Copyright Gov and copyright your songs. Register with a PRO, Performance Rights Organization. They're the ones that collect your royalties. In the US, it's BMI or ASCAP. You know, cover your bases right up front. Don't wait. Start off with the right foot forward and take those steps to protect your intellectual assets, because you never know when an opportunity will present itself, and you want to have your bases covered right from the start.
You want to have
That's what I tell them.
together. That is great advice. That one of the other things that I would add to that, we're in this digital marketplace, okay? And one of the big things is being able to have metadata associated with whatever you're putting out. So you need to make sure that your metadata is in there correctly. So maybe it has your PRO number, it has your web address, it has all the information related to you, and or if you collaborated with somebody. That metadata is really key. And we're going to have a special guest on the program because the folks at my track stage, they have a great program for that, and I'm going to talk with Ravina and Scott at some point on our program. But that's a whole can of worms in itself. The other thing with these with this is that now you had mentioned copyright, and I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. Now, some people though, let's say they're writing trailer cues. Okay, in my case, I write a fair percentage of my work is trailer cues, and I'm not necessarily going for, I call myself a retired songwriter, right? Because I'm not writing songs with lyrics or top sheet and that sort of thing so much anymore. Right. And now when you're doing that kind of production, and you're doing especially lyrical songs where you've got a melody, you've got lyrics, and you've got, an underlying arrangement, that sort of thing of a song, absolutely copyright. Absolutely. Hands down copyrighted, because that is its own unique thing. If you're doing, kind of a trailer with a like, hey, we can do it, uplifting message, kind of universal lyric, you're the best. Whatever, you're doing the cheerleader kind of music,
Yes.
If you go in and you're doing a lot of these, going in and spending that $25-$30 or whatever it is on the copyright for it, that's going to start getting expensive. The same way that, like, if I'm if you're going to do an album of music, you're going to probably have that mixed and mastered. If you're doing production music and you're doing, 30, 25 cuts in a month or something like that, you're going to do this, you've got to have, and as you had mentioned, you've got to be wearing a lot of different hats, and you really have to know all the pieces of it. You can't afford to have it mixed and mastered somewhere else. You can't afford to have other people doing this. You have to know enough on a broader scale to be able to click that render button or bounce, or depending on whatever your software is, and whatever comes out, it sounds great. It's broadcast quality. It has to be, because if you can't do that, you're going to spend way too much money.
And you just mentioned broadcast quality. There's no such thing as a demo anymore.
Yeah, it's gone.
Take that out of your vernacular. Everything that you put out outside of your home studio has to be broadcast quality.
The bar's already here.
And it's not hard to get that. You just have to remember that you're competing in a worldwide platform with other independent artists. Go and listen to some of these radio shows that have independent artists. The production quality that they create in their own home is fantastic. Yeah, I would spend thousands of dollars to get that quality at Fantasy Studios in San Francisco. But now you can do it at home. You have to raise the bar.
So there's a plugin suite called Isotope, right? They have
Mhm.
these all these different plugins and so forth. And one of
Yes.
the things I learned because I was watching how a competitor's system goes in, and what they'll do is like, so you have a spectrum of various instruments. Well, the guitar is going to be right here, the voice is going to be right here, the violin's going to be here, the flute's going to be there, whatever it is, right? Drum,
Mhm.
etc. And then you'll
Right.
have the bass and the bass guitar, and they have a bass drum and a bass guitar. They've got different. They're like competing in the same frequencies, but they're unique, right? So you can do a listen to, and that artificial intelligence will come in, and what it kind of does is it creates these little peaks around each of the notes that is performed. It figures that out, which is like mind blowing.
Yeah.
So there is no excuse for not being able to do that, because you can go in, I've got a system, set up in a template and all that other stuff. It's a whole process. It took me a while to get this all figured out and set up for that. But like, after I'm done, I click a few buttons and I go and I turn on my you know my side chain, or my not my side chain, but my mix channel with all of the particular plugins, and I process them and pick the right ones, because you don't want to have too much compression on classical music, those kinds of things. But you get those systems down. Once you figure it out, you have to figure out what that's going to be, and then you turn them on and put them in, have them listen. They'll do the work for you because
And
engineering is not my specialty, but they make me sound good. And
I think for
that
your
makes what
audience,
people do.
I think that's exactly right. You're spot on. And for your audience, some people might be listening and going, "Oh my God, this is daunting. I can't even do anything." You know, if you get joy just playing guitar for friends, do that. If you want to record, you got to learn a little. If you're going to take the responsibility of being in control of your music business, then you got to learn. You got to invest in that. It doesn't mean you have to do it if you don't want to, but it
It's a
is a
journey.
business today,
It's part of what you have to learn to know your stuff.
Yeah. It's
You
like
know,
it's like going to college. Okay. Invest in the learning process so that you can be better as an artist and better prepared. One last thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned, you said as far as advice, something people don't talk about. There's a lot of Genos out there. Gene hyphen O, Geno with a exclamation point. Mine is Gene space capital O period. And that's how I
let's get that
differentiate.
right. Period.
Well, okay, there's something called an International Standard Name Identifier, otherwise known as an ISNI.
ISNI.
It identifies you, and you make sure you add that to your metadata. You add that when you distribute music so that they don't cross up your music on these platforms with a different artist. I'm still dealing with that. If you look me up on Spotify, I'm there with some guy that does rap. But no, that's not me.
Oh
But
my God! You bring that up because I had this. There's another Christopher Nielsen that did this piece called Ivan the Terrible, and it's I, I want to be respectful. It's really freaking avant-garde. It's way out there. It is nowhere close in the same universe to what I do. But it
right,
keeps showing up on my Apple and my Spotify. It's taken me like 4 years to get it off. You know,
ISNI,
yeah,
ISN International Standard Name Identifier. These are
yeah,
the little things you got to learn, to keep your house in order,
yeah. Well,
basically.
one of the things that, to Spotify and Apple, because this has been bugging me for a while, and there was no real way to get rid of it, because now they've actually gotten better, because they just said, okay, what isn't, it's an option now. What isn't
Yes.
part of what isn't identified with your profile, because there's so much more out there. They're running into this problem a lot. So that's a really big point, really key. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is really important. But at least it's getting easier on the platforms to say, no, that's not mine. Don't associate that with me. And then
Yeah,
the
you could go back to your distributor, TuneCore or whatever one you use, but it takes a while. and better to get it started right off the bat. That way, you're keeping everything credited properly for yourself, right?
Yeah. Hey, one more thing, and you and I talked about this at the taxi convention, or the road rally, and I think this would be interesting for our viewers because one of the things that Michael is just adamant about is don't check the box, the box, the box, the box. So if you use CD Baby or you use whatever tool, don't check that box where they're going to distribute and manage your royalties because you've just given up a publishing deal, and anybody in sync is not going to want anything to do with your stuff. Okay. So tell us that
Yes, I
story
learned.
because you checked the box, the box.
I actually checked the box, my friend. I didn't know what I was doing. I checked the box. You know that first deal I was talking to you about earlier on? That I had checked the box. It took 3 months to get CD Baby to correct it. I had to get a letter of release, and then I had to send that letter to BMI, and it took them 3 months. So it was a 6-month period to correct that. And what you're talking about is, in that case, it was CD Baby Pro, which is the box you check, meaning they're going to be your publisher.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't do that.
This is for YouTube
Always
and
hang on to your
streaming.
publishing. Yeah, publishing. That's a huge thing.
Yep.
Keep your publishing. Never give it away if you can.
Okay. Well, yeah, but in that whole process, I think is really important for that. You can get it back. I mean, I have 2 albums that I mean, it's not sync music, so it's I don't really care. So I'm not gonna go through that hassle with that. But I have 2 albums that are up there, and I just figure, they're up there. I'll move on to the next batch. So
Hey, brother, you never know when it could be used. You don't say never.
yeah, no, like one of the okay, for taxi, just they say, okay, I want this pretty music. Don't use bird sounds. Don't use what and I've got some solo piano up there with bird and nature sounds, and it's gonna be
Oh,
like that.
run it through an AI program and it'll take
Oh,
away the bird sound.
I've got the originals that I can do that. I'd rather just take do another tune. But anyways, this year, what's your top goal of what you're going to do this year?
I want to get my voice back in shape to singing quality again. And I want to finish about maybe 10, 15 songs and put out another album. That'll be my goal for 2024.
Awesome. If you could change one thing in the music industry, what would it be? This is rapid fire.
Pay the artists fairly.
Okay. Looking ahead, what's the dream project or a dream goal for whatever you could do in music?
Have one of my songs recorded by a major artist.
And what is the most challenging thing that you've ever had to deal with in the music business?
Wow. Um,
we
making everybody happy.
Wednesday if you want.
Making everybody happy.
There you
You can
go.
never make everybody happy. So you be happy.
All right. So you mentioned the rock and roll camp kind of thing that you went off and did and had a blast and got inspired and all that. Met some great people. But if you could go and collaborate with any artist on the planet, who would it be?
Who's still alive?
Dead or alive? That's okay.
Paul McCartney, hands down.
There we go. Awesome.
He's my, I want to be that guy.
Oh, there you
I want
go.
to be 80 years old and still playing and sharing the love with everybody.
Geno, thank you so much for being here. And I'm looking at Geno right here, and I'm looking at our audience over here. Geno, thank you for sharing your stories with us today. I appreciate your time and your beautiful view, your background, I should say, your background in music and in California at its best. Thank you so much. I really wish you the best this year on your exploration in this new avenue of business on your journey of learning and growing and finding what's next as an artist and a producer and a businessman and a engineer and a songwriter and a lyricist and a musician and all those things that we have to do with the many hats that we turn around and put them on backwards, forwards. I can't even get my hat on right. Okay. Anyways, I'll wear it just the regular way.
Oh,
Thank you
you
so
know,
much. And this is where
thank you, Chris.
I don't do a mic drop because they're expensive, you know. Anyways, you take care, Geno. I'm gonna wrap this up and then we'll stick around and talk.